Hello, everyone, and welcome to What If Deku Had a Clone Quirk, the movie. Yes, the movie. This is the third movie on my channel. I actually like this one. I love this movie. I'm not gonna yap anymore. I'm gonna get straight into it. If you like this video, please like it, and if you want to see more, please subscribe and check out the rest of my stuff. I'm gonna be uploading daily. Like I'm grinding. Anyway, let's get straight into it. Childhood. I'm gonna say Deku was born to Inko and Hisashi Midoriya. In this timeline, he does have a quirk, a weak doubling quirk that allows himself to make one single clone, but transfer his perspective, quote unquote, or like his, what do I say, like intelligence, I guess. Consciousness between his double, like he can transfer his consciousness between himself and the double. As a kid, he would awaken his quirk at the age of 4. He would randomly one day, he would be getting picked on by Bakugo and his goons as a small flash of light would emit from his body. Everyone's eye, everyone would wince their eyes, and the light as the light would go on, and wait, everyone would wince their eyes. The light would go on, and out of the light, a beat up Deku on the floor and a second Deku standing in front of him. The second Deku, the clone, I'm gonna say it was slightly shorter and like a little bit kind of malformed, you know. As you know, first time using this quirk, it's not gonna be a perfect copy. It's just gonna be like, I don't know, it's not the best. He has to train it a little bit before it's perfect. They would all scream, "Whoa, there's two of you!" And Deku would rub his head in confusion, a little bit lightheaded and very lost, as his head's split between two personalities right now, you know. The second Deku would look around, look down at his feet, look up again, and then look around again, before saying, "Huh?" Before completely disappearing before all of their eyes. The kids would see this and start absolutely screaming, running towards the teachers and telling them that Deku awakened his quirk. Inko would come to pick up Deku and they would go to the quirk doctor together. The doctor would confirm that Deku does in fact have a quirk, a cloning quirk it seems. Quite a weird one at that too. His quirk's name is Replicator. He can create a replica of himself, giving his durability. It also seems his consciousness is split between the clones. Little Izuku can choose which clone body to pilot, quote unquote. He has a secondary effect of a light when a clone is created too, but that's not too important for now. Deku's mum looks down at the doctor. Deku's mum looks at the doctor, and then looks down at her son again, whose face would be beaming with the widest smile she'd ever seen. Well, at least you can be a hero, Izuku, Inko would say, not telling Deku her real thoughts of how this is going to cost her to look after two boys. The doctor would look at Inko, reading her like a book, and assuring her that her worries are not to be worried about. Saying that his quirk can only last a short duration, though as he ages, I'm sure he will learn to control it. They would go home, and he would learn to control over. They would go home after this, and Deku would immediately start summoning his clone, talking to it, trying to get it to stay around for as long as he can, learning to switch his consciousness from one clone to another. It does drain him a lot, though. Like, you know, he does have to physically, like, you know, split. Like, I don't know. He would grow up in a training hard and befriending Bakugo, who isn't a douche in this timeline, because he does actually have a quirk. So those two would become friends in this timeline. Class would continue as normal, and Deku would get a little bit of a bigger head because, you know, hanging next to Bakugo and getting rid of the whole fanboy personality. You know. Cut forward 10 years to when it's Deku. Wait. We're gonna go to Sludgeville now. Cut forward 10 years when Deku was 14. In this timeline, him and Bakugo get along decently, and sometime even train together. Deku, I'm going to say, has made some progress with Quirk over the next 10 years. He found out he can make up to 2 extra clones for a total of 3 bodies. so 2 clones and himself at once. Along with this, he found his clones can learn info on his behalf, and then when they disappear, they can return the info to his original consciousness, making it so he doesn't have to eat or drink either. Like, like shadow clones, like shadow clone jutsu, like Naruto, yeah. Deku and Bakugo would train on Dagobah Beach in their spare time. They would spare with one another because, and they would go to Dagobah Beach because it's a good little spot. They would see all the trash and they would create like a little, like a little circle area that they can spar in, like a little ring. They also hit gym together after figuring out that they can't really rely on their quirks so much as they're still humans, especially Deku, because his quirk isn't really physical. It's just a clone. It's just 3 people. If anything, it's like a jumping quirk. The training and the gym, also hanging out with Bakugo, would rub off on Deku and leads to his personality being much more confident in this timeline. The day of the sludge villain attack comes around and the teacher throws the papers up in the air like in canon. Bakugo does his little speech, Deku looking at him. Bakugo go, oi, oi, oi! Deku and Bakugo would split after school, dapping each other up, As I say, rest day from gym, and Deku takes a shortcut home. He walks through a tunnel and another version of himself with a hoodie next to him. He doesn't want to get in trouble for public quirk use, so he hides himself. So he always has a double with him. I'm gonna go on to where his clones are. He has 1 clone at home, like hanging out with Inko. He has 1 clone at school with him, learning with him, like in another class. And he has 1 clone. Oh, and it's just him. So then after school, him and his clone are walking home, and his clone has, his clone has a hoodie and like a mask on to hide his face, Anyway, the clone would hear a metal clank and feel the hair on his neck stand up. "Give me your body, kid!" The sludge villain would scream as he shoots a 10-year-old Deku. Without even thinking, the clone would push Deku out of the way and tank the shot himself. He would spit out blood as he's strangled by the sludge villain. Deku would watch in horror as himself would watch in horror, seeing almost a mirror image of himself getting strangled to death in front of him. He tries to claw himself out, unable to move, horrified. In the corner of his eye, he sees a familiar figure jumping from the floor, winding up his fist and sending a smash, bellowing towards the sludge villain. Just in time, Deku closes his eyes and releases his clone, puffing into a cloud of smoke inside the villain as a gust of wind hits the sludgy mass and paints him onto the walls. Deku would look up at All Might and his face would light up, seeing it's All Might. "Hello, young man. Are you okay? Did the sludge villain get to you? I swear I saw you and the villain just a second ago." Deku looks around from his right to his left, looking for his notebook, geeking out, asking for an autograph. As All Might flips through the pages, looking for a clear one to sign, Deku explains his quirk to him. My quirk's name is Replicator. I can pretty much make clones. Kinda lame, but it works." All Might laughs and assures him his quirk is fine, complimenting his notebook's contents before leaping off, dropping the sludge villain mid-jump. So Deku doesn't jump onto All Might in this timeline as, he got his, he's confident in this one. He isn't worried about it. They do have a little chat though. Deku gets to know All Might. All Might gets to know Deku a little bit, make their bases and shit, The second sludge villain incident. This shit, bitch. Bakugo will walk out the arcade and look at the weird sludge on the floor before getting taken hostage, immediately setting off a huge explosion and trying to get out the grasp of the villain. Deku would be walking home and his villain would have been sent to the shop by Inko to get some groceries. Relaying the info to the real Deku, who was chilling in his room, so the real Deku, who just met All Might, made it home, and the clone Deku was sent out by Inko to go get groceries for them. Deku would immediately switch to the other Deku's POV, seeing a large group of people staring in disbelief at a villain attack in broad daylight. Deku would release his clone and at home and summon it to himself, getting on his shoulders to get a better view. He would pull out his phone to try and get a video for Bakugo and to rewatch later for note purposes, zooming in to see a familiar face in a familiar villain's body. Deku's eyes would widen, and anger would build up. Immediately, Deku would jump off his clone's shoulders, jumping over 3 sets of people and parkour rolling onto the floor in front of them, running at the burning buildings and the villain. He would release both of his clones and summon them next to him. He would put them like in a V in front of him, so he's behind them, and you got one to the left, one to the right. He would put his hands out in front of him. The clones would grab one of his hands each and would yank Deku, throwing him at the sludge villain at top speed. Utilizing the second part of his quirk, he would summon the clones again, a large flash of light blinding the villain for long enough for all of his clones to claw Bakugo out. Bakugo was barely conscious. All 3 Dekus grab Bakugo and run with a body part on each hand. They run into the crowds as the villain's tendril chases them. In his strain, Deku forces a 4th clone to come out to redirect the tendril to another direction, away from the clones and away from Bakugo. The clones look back at the sludge villain so the 4th clone looks back at the sludge villain and sticks a tongue out before disappearing. Suddenly, all clones disappear and Deku drops unconscious to the floor. The strain being too much. Both Deku and Bakugo lay there as the sludge villain was about to attack them. All Might buffs up and steps between the two. You've done enough. You've done a mighty fine job, young man. I'm so very proud of you. You inspire me to go beyond. He then clocks his fist back and punches the sludge villain. It straight up disappears. Deku and Bakugo are rushed off to the hospital and they wake up the next day with both their families sitting beside them. The 10-month time skip would happen. After they wake up in the hospital, the doctors would explain to them that the sludge villain incident caused Deku to get a concussion and broke his arm after he fell down. Like, he didn't get hurt or anything. He, like, legitimately just fell down on it weird. Like, Bakugo fell on top of it or something when he passed out. He also explains there's quite a famous... They're both actually quite famous. Hero... they've got some names. Hero Pothead, who's Bakugo, and Hero Doppel, which is Deku. Deku smiles at the name he's given and looks over to Bakugo, who's seething with anger at the name he was given. The doctor would explain to them that they need to rest for the couple of days, and at most, they're all good to go again. The doctor explains that they need to go rest for a couple of days at most, and then they're all good to go again. Over the next few days, Deku and Bakugo would get to talking about the UA entrance exam as they have nothing better to do. You know, still sitting in hospital and stuff. They would talk about how Deku can now make 4 clones and they're going on to train with that. Bakugo getting excited as 3 of us are already getting kind of tough. Deku and Bakugo are almost released from the hospital when a short skinny man and a policeman come in to get Deku. They pull him away from Bakugo into a separate room. Deku is sat down and All Might starts talking after buffing up again. All Might explains one for all to Deku and offers his quirk to him. Deku thinks for a second before speaking. I'll take it, but I kinda gotta tell the douche in the other room. He's probably secretly listening in on this already. Bakugo quickly sits back down. All Might asks why, and Deku explains that it would be weird if he suddenly got a power boost and that he's been best friends with Bakugo his whole life. All Might agrees and they all talk. Bakugo somehow wraps his head around the thing and says, "Wait, you chose this, nerd?" All Might nods, and All Might nods and says, "The heroics your friend showed while saving you the other day solidified that for me." Bakugo scoffs and says, "Well, at least now I can stop pulling my punches." They then talk about training for the next 10 months, and All Might recommends they go to Dagobah Beach. Deku and Bakugo look at each other and smirk, saying they already trained there and that it's perfect. Yeah, we made a ring out of trash so we can use our quirks there without anyone seeing. All Might would sigh and shake his head. Well, we'll be clearing it instead. It'll be good for you to develop, I think. Plus, one for all isn't a quirk you can take lightly, he explains. Deku nods and they go off to train for the next 10 months. At the end of the 10 months, a lot of stuff changes, especially about his quirk. He can now make up to 5 clones, so 6 people total. So his main body and 5 extra clones that he can change into, and he can have them, and they can all last for up to 1 hour. Like, okay, if he has 5 clones plus himself out, they can all last for an hour. If he has like 3 clones, they can all last for 2 hours each. If he has 1 clone, it can last for 6 hours. And due to his clones not transferring damage to the original, he can use his clones to get a hold of One For All's percentage system, and bouncing ideas off Bakugo gets him to get into full cowling. So he can use 5 clones at once and can use up to 10% full cowling and 20% regular punches and stuff. He also leaves a clone to study for him as he does workouts and stuff on the beach. He also has clones in full cowling for long periods of time to train for duration rather than power. Okay, the UA entrance exam would come around. He walks into the building with Bakugo, and he doesn't trip. Oh no, he does trip, but Bakugo does catch him. They take the written exam as regular. Deku does better than normal due to studying more and being less fatigued. They go to the gate of the practical exam, and Deku brings out all 5 clones, and they put on a full cowling. So he kind of looks like Pain almost. Like, they look cold, I'll give it to him. The gates open, and Deku, being skeptical, sends 1 clone out to see if it's allowed. No one says anything, so the rest follow with insane speeds. All of his clones and himself take on the robots with 10% One For All, and they get hella points. Like, they would all run down to the middle, and then they would just split. And they would all take on separate robots. Leaving some for the rest of the kids. He would just kind of run around instead. Once he had enough points, he sends his clones on to check for people in trouble, racking up rescue points as well. So the 0-pointer comes out, and Deku sees Uraraka. He calls 2 of his 3 clones to here, and they get Uraraka out of the rubble and run away. A 3rd clone shows up and goes into 75% One For All into his fists. Now, because Deku's clones don't transfer damage, he can go into 100% One For All onto his clone, jump up, smack something, and then it'll disappear. So it's kind of cracked if I'm being completely honest with you. So one of the clones will get into 75% One For All, jump up, smack the robot, and then just poof, just gone. Deku would go home with a big smile on his face as he waits for the results. Bakugo comes through the door about 2 weeks later, holding Deku's letter in his hand. Yo, nerd, I found this at the doorstep. I'm coming in. They both sit, and Deku opens it. A hologram opens up, and they are greeted by All Might. Well done, young Midoriya. You got 88 villain points and 66 hero points. Congratulations, you made it into Your Hero Academia. Deku grins and nods his head, trying to look cool for Bakugo, which doesn't work. Bakugo is pissed. Deku got more points to them. They get ready for school, and they both walk in at the same time the next day. Okay, they would walk in the next day and sit down, Bakugo putting his legs on the desk. Immediately, a tall boy with blue hair comes up to him and barrages him. Deku sits at his desk, listening to the music that a clone left at home listening to. A man stands up in class, while the class is yapping to each other, and introduces himself, telling the class to sit down and shut up. The class going silent. The teacher gives out sports uniforms, and they go to meet outside for the Quirk apprehension test. They meet outside, and Deku has passed the ball, telling him to throw it. He looks back in confusion. Huh? Throw it? We want to see how much your Quirk amplifies your regular abilities. Just throw it with your Quirk. Deku thinks for a second, then summons a clone to throw it at 100%. Deku tells the class to back up a little bit, which Bakugo backs him up for. The clone charges 100%, sparks flying and wind gushing around him. With a flick of his finger, he smashes the ball up into the atmosphere before disappearing completely. Huh? Infinity? Eraserhead says, as the class jaws are left agape. The rest of the tests go about as well as you would expect. Not going too hard, just using 10% for the rest of the exercises. Getting easily first place. Invisible Girl isn't kicked from class this time, as her Quirk isn't physical, and Eraserhead would see that, and the class would resume as normal. The Okay, they're sat in class one day, boring as usual. Deku's sitting at home, actually, while a clone does his work for him, whilst another clone trains in the gym, until All Might pops into the class saying, "I am here." Deku immediately pops his head up and transfers back to his class. They get their hero suit. Wait, okay. Let me explain this, right? So, Deku leaves one clone in class, because they can't tell the difference. He leaves one clone in class, he has one clone at home, and he has one clone at the gym. They can all go 2 hours each, right? So, he's sitting at the gym currently. He's sitting at home currently. A clone is working out for him, and another clone is at school, right? So, All Might pops into class. The Deku in school's head would pop up, and then Deku would transfer into it. And then the one at home would still be there, but he would just wouldn't be conscious, it'd just be like NPC type shit. They get their hero suits and walk out into the training center. Deku's hero costume would be similar to the one worn in canon when he's fighting against 1B, because that shit looked cool as hell, but with some gadgets to help him out. I'm gonna say he kind of looks like Pain a little bit, because, well, let's be real, Pain looks clean as shit. They would get lots drawn out, and Deku and Uraraka versus Bakugo and Ida. Bakugo grins, looking at Deku, who grins back. They make their way to the entrance, and They make their way to the entrance of the building, and Deku tells Uraraka about a plan. They make their way in, and Bakugo comes flying down the stairs. Deku creates his 5 clones who go separate ways as he goes with Uraraka. One of its clones finds Bakugo almost instantly, and Deku switches to it, pulling Uraraka with his clone's mic thing. Deku and Bakugo square off, and they both say they won't hold back. They both blitz into the middle of the room, slamming punches at each other. Not holding back, they start to fight. No quirks, just hands. After Deku eggs Bakugo on, a clone of Deku comes from behind and traps Bakugo with capture tape and grins up at him before disappearing. Same with the one that was fighting Bakugo after shrugging. They all form next to the main Deku, next to Uraraka, and they break into the room Ida was in, holding the bomb. Deku comes in from all sides, and they pull out capture tape. Kirishima in the room with All Might says, "Wait, huh? He can clone objects too? I thought he could only clone himself." All Might smiles and looks back at him. Nope, he legit held on to 6 capture tapes the whole time. The class face palms. They all surround Ida with a capture tape, creating a circle around him before running and capturing him while Uraraka touches the bomb. "Hero team wins!" All Might shouts. Bakugo will be pissed by this. He didn't get a fair fight. Deku kind of bitched him, which Bakugo says he'll get back for him in training. They go back to class, and Bakugo is annoyed that Deku dogged him like that, saying he's going to get back in training. Deku gulps. They are told about the USJ from Eraserhead, and they all get hyped. They stack onto the bus and head off to the USJ. They get off and are greeted inside by 13. Who gives him a lame-ass speech. In the corner of his eyes, Deku sees a portal forming in the middle of the USJ facility. Turning to it, Eraserhead notices too, and they get ready to go down. Deku jumps off. Eraserhead would jump off, going to defeat the small fry villain. Deku sends 2 clones to assist him, pushing to 50% full cowling each. Kurage comes up, and Bakugo and Kirishima try to blast him away, which doesn't work. They're sucked into a portal before being teleported. Deku makes the remaining 3 clones push outside the building. Push one outside the circle before being teleported. The clone starts running at 15% towards the school to get back up, and the rest are teleported. So, to refresh, 1 clone is running to get help, 2 clones are with Eraserhead, and 3 clones are teleported. The main Deku got teleported, his body landing on the waterfall area. Falling, he uses a 20% smash to keep himself afloat before Froppy captures him, and they jump to safety. His other 2 clones are in the fire area and with Bakugo respectively. The main Deku closes his eyes and checks all the other clones' whereabouts. He says, "It seems that we've been separated, not by Quirk, but by at random. My clones are at random spots fighting Quirk users right now. They figure out a plan, and Deku calls his clone back from the fireplace to assist. They send his clone out to send a smash at the water at 100% before jumping with 15% full cowling and landing safely on the other side, defeating the villains. They meet up with the two clones who are with a race ahead. In a flash, one of them is taken out. No more. Kill those brats. It rushes at the second clone and swats it away before going towards the race ahead. Deku creates another clone and tanks a hit for a race ahead before yanking him away. That's not something we want to mess with. Did you cancel its quirk? A race ahead nods in horror. Comes onto Deku's face. Suddenly, All Might and the rest of the faculty bust through the glass, shattering it before All Might swats the fodder villain away. Deku and Eraserhead use this chance to get some distance on Shigaraki and the Nomu. Nomu follows them, but they get hit before they get hit, but All Might smacks it out of the way and starts fighting it. Shigaraki Shigaraki, seeing it's a losing battle, dips, leaving the NPC and the Nomu there to rot. So they would actually beat the the USJ incident a lot quicker in this timeline because Deku ran instead of Ida. I think Deku is quicker than Ida. They would Shigaraki and Korogiri would still escape, but yeah, that's about it. A week breaks is set, and they all in. A week break is set out, and they all aren't injured thanks to Deku's involvement. They're trained, and Deku starts to leave 5 clones at home, studying and doing training to better understand his quirk. Due to this, he unlocks a 6th clone, making 7 altogether. He's training to limit the backlash. When the UA Sports Fest comes around, he is ready, pushing his full cowling to 15% at this point and being able to reach 30% in dire needs. He goes through the race course easily, leaving clones to help him get through it and tanking stuff / watching out for him. He gets to 1 million points and decides to make a team of 4 clones of him and Bakugo, who got 2nd place. It is allowed and they destroy the competition. Like, let's be real, 4 clones at 15% full cowling plus Bakugo on top. It's cracked. The 1v1s come up, and due to a clone of Deku being with the tail guy in the fire part of the USJ, he's more friendly with him. The tail guy, I forgot his name, would warn Deku about the guy he's about to face, and they dap up. They both step out the ring, and immediately he starts running his mouth. Deku tells him to shut up, which actually activates his quirk, and he starts walking out of the ring. He sees a premonition of the last wielders, who freeze for the time being. He sees a premonition of the last wielders, who freeze time for him in his mental landscape. They stare at him, towering over him in a fading mindscape, cracking, falling to infinity. The brash looking one speaks first. Well. Took you long enough. We've been trying to reach you for time. We've been trying to reach you. But every time you're asleep, you have a clone awake doing some stupid shit. Like, geez, kid, take a break. Your mind hasn't been completely out like this in a while. Another one continues. Anyway, we're the past wielders of One for All. The quirk All Might gave you. I am Nanishimura. I was his master. Deku froze, trying to take this all in. Past wielders, he says. They all nod. We've been watching you. You're far more than a hero, boy. For that, we give you these willingly. It's going to take a while. It's going to be a lot to take in at once, but we know you can do it. He stops them. Wait, what? They fade and he returns to life. Almost at the edge of the ring, he explodes into a gust of air. All 6 clones explode from his body, all wielding a different quirk they got from a previous user. The air pressure was enough to knock Shinso out. Deku wins the match, but his arm is completely broken, which he winces in pain and absorbs his clones before anyone could see. Feeling power, more power than he could ever need. Zuko wins! In the recovery room, Deku sits. Post healing, he's very tired but still raring to go. He wobbles in place, still trying to get his head around the reality he's in. All Might bursts through the door, as does Bakugo, asking what happened. Deku forces a smile and then tells them that he'll explain later. They clear out of the room as per Recovery Girl's instructions, and Deku is left with his thoughts. He summons his clones again and asks Recovery Girl if he can have the room for a second. He starts looking at them, feeling the different powers within each of them. I can't use these. They'll go haywire. I can barely deal with one quirk. What the hell is this? He muttered. He hides his clones in a separate room and tells them to sit there for the meantime so his powers don't go deranged mid-match. He then walks out onto the pitch once again, this time facing Todoroki. They face each other down and Deku gets ready, going into his 15% full cow, going to 15% full cow and then getting ready. Based on his start in the obstacle course, he's going to start with ice, he thought. The round began and Deku jumped to the left before flicking three air projectiles at Todoroki at 30%. He then chased those air projectiles down towards Todoroki and feinted left, sprinting right, then meeting Todoroki with a mean right kick. Todoroki, thinking quick, blocks the air with his ice and tries to freeze Deku's foot, but he slips him and sends a kick to his left side, which he blocks with no fire. Which he blocks, but with no fire, so it connects and it sends him to the side of the ring. I have too much on my plate right now to not win. People believe in me, Deku says to Todoroki, before bumping one for all up to 20%. His joints ache and grind, but his speed increases enough to overpower Todoroki. He would land hits on both of his sides, and Todoroki would get flustered. Sparks out. Sparks starting to ignite, burning Deku's leg before he pulls away. Oh, so the fire comes out, huh? He says as he grins. Todoroki looks at him. I hate you for making me use this dog's quirk. That dog's? It's your quirk, is it not? Deku says. He shrugs it off before saying, anyway, this is a fight, not a concert. Let's fight. They rush together, Deku using 30% one for all full cowling, blitzing behind Todoroki, but getting flown out of the ring by his flash fire fist. Deku comes third, Bakugo comes first, and Todoroki comes second. They'd be singing in class about a week later. At midnight, would come into class talking about their hero names. Now, if you remember at the start of the story, Deku got a name for himself, which was Doppel, and I actually really like that, so I'm gonna keep that. The class likes it, and the teacher likes it, and everyone's kind of asking where his clones are, but he can't really say anything at the moment because they're all, off training some freaking powers. Internship. Deku decides to take his internship with the old guy, explaining. Whoa, that felt weird. Deku decides to take the internship with the old guy. So, what's his name? Gran Torino, explaining finally to All Might and Bakugo what happened. They set up a meeting in a free gym to try out some testing. It's like my mind went to a different plane. They told me they were proud of me, and they gave me something. I don't know what it feels. I don't know what it is, but it feels strong. Almost too strong. Whatever it is, it made my clones burst out of me without my control. They both nod. Deku recalls one of his clones leaving the rest. He turns on full cowling and starts to breathe, remembering the power he felt. Suddenly, he starts to float. All Might's mouth drops and Bakugo stares, kind of impressed but not willing to show it. Deku, that's my master's quirk, All Might says. Deku snaps out of it, looking down to see he's a good 10 meters off the ground. He screams, and by instinct deactivates his quirk, making him drop like a stone. They start to theorize about what's happening. When one of his clones was pulled in, he got a new quirk. Maybe his clones all observed a quirk from the previous wielder. He thinks on this for a while. taking his clones and dressing them in different outfits and meeting the old man at the front of his house. He opens the door and is scared, thinking they're going to jump him. Deku apologizes and explains his situation. The old man is perplexed and takes him to an open area where he can finally use his quirk freely. He tells him to pull in all of his clones at a time and see what quirks he has. He does this and starts. First quirk, float. Second quirk, transmission. Third quirk, black whip. Fourth quirk, barge in. Fifth quirk, danger sense. Sixth quirk, smoke screen. Saying that almost felt natural to him. He tries to pull out each clone in, remembering the overwhelming power. He starts to get a brief flashes of each quirk, but he can only reliably get float and black whip to activate. Even then, float is a bit hit or miss. He trains with Black Whip for a couple of days, finding out he can use Black Whip on both of his clones and his real body at the same time, though it tires him out. So the way I'm gonna set this up is Deku has his clones. They've all got a quirk from the previous wielder, and then him. So if he wants to use one of the wielder's powers, he switches to their body, or he can use their power remotely. But it does hurt his. It does like drain him a little bit. So really, he does have like 6 quirks, but he can only really use like 2 at a time right now, which is Black Whip and One for All, and his clone one really. But yeah. They hop on a train after getting a small handle on Black Whip. He only manages a little bit of a time, 2 tendrils per clone, and 2 clones at once. They're suddenly attacked by a Nomu. They jump off and start attacking them. Deku runs off to chase the Nomu when his danger sense goes crazy for some reason. He, without thinking, goes down an alley and sees Ida on the floor, about to die. He gets Black Whip and gets another clone running at Stain, with a tendril in each arm on each clone. He ties Stain up with the 2 tendrils and takes a knife out of the other 2 while using 15% full curling. Ida screams at him and says he's paralyzed and to run away. Deku turning to him, shrugs and smiles. Deku uses Black Whip on the floor to sneak up to Stain midair, then releases tendrils to capture Stain. Throwing him at a wall, he then uses a clone to kick him into the gut. Stain suddenly licks Deku's clone's leg and he collapses. Huh? Wait, what? He says as his clone suddenly gets paralyzed. Stain laughs. So, you're the one from the sports festival, huh? Nice quirk. I didn't know you had black tendrils too. Deku tells him to quit yapping and runs his fade. Stain runs in and Deku uses float to fly above Stain before using Black Whip to get Stain's leg and throw him at the floor over and over again. He then throws him up before doing a black backflip and smacking him down midair, tying him up as he's knocked out. The pro heroes hear the smash and come there to find Stain captured and Ida KO'd. So let's be real, Stain's gonna get beaten. Like what is he gonna do against 15% One for All? 20% if he has to. Plus clones, so there's 2 of them running in. Plus Black Whip. Nah, he's cooked. Three quirks against 1. Okay. The students are told about what happened over the break, and Deku was not given props for it, which is kind of lame. They're told about the final exams, and they try to get info on it, including Deku. They meet at the final spot, and this time Deku isn't paired with Bakugo, it's Todoroki. Deku and Todoroki versus All Might. Deku and Todoroki don't even speak, Todoroki being moody due to not getting over his stuff during the UA Sports Festival. They get hit with a massive burst of air and see All Might in the middle of the road, staring menacingly. Todoroki is belted into a ball, and Deku barely reacts in time, transferring to another clone to tank it. Deku creates a clone with a flashbang. He hasn't used this in a while. It's kind of like a special move. Deku then uses Black Whip to capture All Might and fling him up into the air. Deku uses his 2 clones to get moving to the exit, not wanting to fight All Might. They almost run out, but Deku sees All Might about to hit Todoroki. He uses a clone to block it, and Todoroki sees this, gains respect from Deku. Todoroki will then freeze All Might with a big ass ice geyser and they sprint to the gate, having mutual respect and both passing. They go to the training camp and are dropped to the side of the mountain, needing to make their own way to the camp. Deku cheats and floats to camp. They say, "Hey, one of your students can fly. That's not fair." And Eraserheads, confused by this. They make it in split time and normal stuff goes down. They train and now Deku can handle using 3 quirks at a time, but never does because it's a lot of strain. They go into the forest and danger sense goes off. Deku tells Mandalay to report something to the whole camp. He goes to Koda and saves him using Black Whip, making Muscular chase him through the forest, refusing a clone to lead him away from everyone else while he carries Koda away. So that's like Muscular's just gone. He's running off to God knows where. Suddenly, All for One appears through a portal and they capture Deku's clone and take him to the base. The villain's defeated, but those two are captured. All for One tries to take his clone's quirk, which he succeeds at, taking Smokescreen. What a useless quirk. Pitiful. What a waste of One for All. What a waste of time. Camino Ward would begin. They storm the base after Deku gives them clues about its location through his clone being able to sense what direction it was coming from. Deku would switch to his perspective between the clone and his constantly, taking raps on everything. All for One vs All Might starts and Deku sends 2 clones to help, giving a few 100% smashes before vanishing, one staying around. All for One gets sick of his games and decides to use something different. Using his Force Quirk activation, he reverse summons Deku to his clone. Deku looks down, being punctured in the stomach. Having not made a clone in time, he feels his quirks draining from him. So, you know how All for One can force someone to use their quirks? So he forced Deku's quirk to change perspective with Deku. So Deku was punctured by his tendrils. Like that, yeah. So he then gets his quirks drained from him. All Might sees this and severs the tendrils from him, but it was too late. All bar his original quirk remained. Pitiful. You really thought you could make a difference, All for One would say. Deku tries to create his clones, but only one showed up. The sparks of One for All leaving his clone rushed at All for One. Putting all his power and all his quirks into one attack, he punched All for One into nothingness. Shigaraki, seeing this, would start to cry. Okay, now fuck that. So pretty much Deku tried to create his clone, but only one showed up. The sparks of One for All leaving his clone rushed at All for One. All for One using One for All would put his power in his place. Deku would stare on as All for One rushes All Might. They begin to fight, but it doesn't go well. Yeah, that's where I'm gonna end it. So pretty much Deku, he sold. Like he sold. I honestly don't know why I wrote it like that. I thought I was gonna write that for a. I wrote this like a week ago, and I thought I wrote this more kind than I did, but I guess not. Anyway, that was what if Deku had a clone quirk. That was actually kind of good, if I'm being honest with myself. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and if you want to see more, please check out my channel. It really helps out a lot. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for watching.
That is the end, everyone. Thank you for watching. If you ended up making it all the way to the end of the video, please tell me in a comment and I will probably subscribe back to you because I've got like 4 subscribers right now and I'm just trying to grow. If you like the video, please subscribe and like and check out my other stuff if you can. Anyway,